Hey, so today I'm going to make a video about ramps. A lot of different types of ramps. I'm going to talk a little bit about the situations where you have to use a ramp, ones in which your wheelchair may or may not go over. So let's just hop right into it. Anybody in a wheelchair or walker knows a bit about the challenges associated with moving up stairs, lips in the floor. I've done a video about getting into a shower. Um, there's a lot more areas in a home that are not level more than you think. We should be glad, at least here in the US, that in 1990, the ADA requirements were enforced into law. And so that makes it so that when there's construction, new buildings, renovation to old buildings, requirements in older buildings, that it creates accessibility solutions to get into those facilities and to move around inside of them. So mainly it's designed for wheelchairs, but when you have the wheelchair, then it also makes it easy for those with walkers, people who can't lift their legs as much, have issues with that. So at least we have that out in the public. It's not the case in every country, so we should be happy we have it here. I've been in countries where just simple things like rise and run on stairs is not only different than ours, but it's different between stairs on the same staircase. So you trip a lot, even when you can walk. I think the main issues that people encounter is you're living your life. You love your home. It's got stairs, steps, rise and fall. It might be multi-level home. And then all of a sudden, there's an accident or a health issue, and someone in the home finds themselves in a wheelchair or a walker overnight. Or in our case with Rebecca, over about 10 years. But it seemed that those 10 years flew by so fast, and all of a sudden, I'm having to make changes to the house that were unexpected. I had 10 years to think about it. You also can have lots of scenarios where you have elderly loved ones, either family or friends, and all of a sudden just can't get around like you used to. And so either the issue is you're having to solve it yourself, or a caregiver is stopping what's going on in their life to come and solve problems and help you. So there's a lot of different scenarios. But at the end of the day, we have the same issue that I want to address. And you could move around yesterday, but now you can't move around. So how do we solve some of those issues? I'm going to go through a few things that you can do to your home to make these changes. Some of the things I'm not going to cover in this video. One is stairways leading to a second floor or a third floor. That's going to require stair lifts, either a chair that you sit in or an actual platform that rises with the stairs, or an elevator. Elevators are no longer just for big buildings and commercial facilities. They actually make lots of different elevators that you have installed in your house, from very, very simple to very, very fancy. I'm not covering that today. I'm also not going to cover mobility issues dealing with lifts, or ceiling lifts, floor lifts. I'm just not going to cover those today. Those are mobility issues in the home, but we're not going to cover those today. I am going to show you what my situation is, but I'm not going to spend a lot of time on permanent outdoor ramps to get into your home. Those require, there's a lot of companies that do that, and it requires a lot of design to meet your exact home, how much space you have, how many stairs need to go up. I am going to go, in a few minutes, I'm going to talk about ADA requirements. But those are designed almost exclusively for your specific situation. So I will show you mine today, but I have a temporary solution on mine. We'll get to that when I get to it. Let's first look at stairs themselves. Stairs are the biggest obstacle for a wheelchair, so I'm just going to address them first. What does construction code say about stairs? So in a stair, you have a rise and a run. Under code, the maximum the rise can be is 7 3/4 inches. That's referred to as either the riser or the rise, but it could be less. The stairs leading into my house are at 6.5 inches. That's their rise. But the max is supposed to be 7 3/4 inch. And then the depth, or the tread depth, or the run, is the space horizontally between each step. So, and that is supposed to be a minimum of 10 inches. So there can be some differences in stairways, but those are the maximum rise and the minimum tread run depth. Stairs are, though, not the only elevation in your house. If you walk around your home, you'll find there's small little rises and runs all over the place. For example, in my house, I have several different floor types in the house. I have tile in the kitchen. I have hardwood floors in the room next to it on one side, hardwood floors on the other side, and there actually is about 3/4 of an inch of a drop between the top of that tile and the hardwood floor. So can you roll up that with a wheelchair? Certainly you can roll right up to it, especially if you come into it at a straight angle, and can push your way up onto that. However, other mobility devices that have very small roller wheels, they're not going to go up that. So you've got to create some form of ramp for that. I will show you what I've done in my house. I actually have 2 rooms off of the main part of the house that were built at a different time than when the main part of the house was built. And they're actually about an inch to an inch and a half lower than the rest of my house. Don't know why that was done, but especially if you have an older home, you walk around, you'll probably see elevation differences like that. And when you're walking on 2 feet, probably never really thought about it. You knew it was there, but it was never an issue. But if you have accessibility issues, all of a sudden they all become issues. So let's first talk about ADA requirements for ramps. First, slope. What is allowable with a slope? So the ADA requirement, the maximum slope allowed is 1 to 12, meaning for every 1 inch going up, you have to have 12 inches in length in your ramp to account for that 1 inch up. So if you have to climb 1 inch and you follow that guideline, then it needs to be 12. Your ramp needs to be 12 inches long. If you want to go up 1 step, and let's say that step is 7 3/4 inch, then you need to have a ramp that's 96 inches long, or 8 feet. And if you want to go up 2 steps, roughly so your length of your ramp needs to be 192 inches, or 16 feet long. You get the point. I'll address this again in reference to my own home in a few minutes, and I'll show you what I've done, even though some of these solutions are temporary fixes. They're not ADA compliant, but we're out in the public and in new construction, the ADA has to be met. So that's the slope. The ramp needs to be at least 36 inches wide. Most of your wheelchairs range from about 24 inches wide up to probably around 30, but you have to be able to go up a ramp and let the spinning wheel be able to move, not just be hitting the walls going up. So the minimum width for a ramp needs to be 36 inches. The ramp needs to be stable, firm, and has a non-slip resistant surface on it. Number 4, there has to be a smooth transition at the top and at the bottom of the ramp, and a leveling off with every 30 inches in rise or every 30 feet of ramp. So even if it's a long, stretched out ramp, if the ramp is more than 30 feet long, at some point in that ramp, it has to stop rising or falling and have a level platform, and then continue going downhill after that platform. Number 5, handrails are required if the rise is greater than 6 inches. And those handrails need to be then at least 34 to 38 inches in height. And finally, number 6, there needs to be edge protection so the wheelchair will not slip off that ramp on an ADA compliant ramp. All of those requirements need to be met with permanent construction of a ramp and also out in any public area. The ramps need to be permanent there. Your home, it is not a public location, but you may still need to meet these requirements if under a few things. One, the person in the wheelchair is propelling themselves. So I'm going to talk to you in a few minutes about temporary ramps, and they're generally steeper than ADA compliance. But someone in a wheelchair that's propelling themselves, meaning they're pushing their way in the wheelchair, they're not going to get up anything more steep than 1 to 12. Most people. Some athletic folks in wheelchairs will go up really steep, and they can go up wherever they want to go almost, but most people can't propel a wheelchair up something greater than 1 to 12. The second point where you need to meet the ADA compliance is if the wheelchair is self-propelled. So if it's an electric wheelchair, those you need to also have your maximum 1 to 12 for those, just because the wheelchair is going to be propelling itself up those. And finally, all permanent ramps, you should make them ADA compliant. And if you're going to go to the effort to build and cost to build a permanent ramp, you need to make it ADA compliant. If a caregiver will be pushing the wheelchair and it is your residence, then temporary or portable ramps can be used. I'm not telling you to avoid ADA requirements, but there are times when you have to be able to get into somewhere, get into a home where there is no ramp, and so that's where temporary and portable ramps come in. In my case, I have to push my wife everywhere. She doesn't propel herself, and she can't control the toggle on an electric wheelchair. So right at this time, and I'll show you pictures of this, we do not have an ADA compliant ramp leading into our home. I push her up a ramp. We have a height of 3 steps with a total height of just under 21 inches. And the ramp I have there is a wood temporary ramp. It can be removed, and it is 8 feet long. So it is not ADA compliant, but I can push her up that ramp relatively easily. And it's wide enough, and I do have blocks on the sides of the ramp to keep her wheelchair so it can't come off of it. But if it was to be ADA compliant, it would need to be 21 feet long. I'm not going to verbally here recommend for anyone that you always use a temporary ramp, but in some cases, for us, we've used a temporary ramp for some years, but I do have a list of projects to do around the house, and very soon the project on the top of that list will be I'm going to build a more permanent ADA compliant ramp so we can feel more comfortable getting her into the house. For economic reasons, you may not be able to meet all the ADA requirements, and so you need to do what works for you, but you need to be safe. Don't just prop, two 2x4s at the width you think meets the wheel and try to roll someone in a wheelchair up into your house. Your loved one will end up in the emergency room or worse. And here I'll show you a few ramps that I found on the internet that I'd probably stay away from these. I'll discuss ramp types here in a minute, but say you're invited over to somebody's house, you need to get into their house. They're not ADA compliant in their home. That's okay. In my situation, I keep a folding aluminum portable ramp in the back of my pickup truck. And when we go to somebody's house that has stairs or whatever, I can get up probably as high as 4 steps with this. I don't like going up more than 4. It gets pretty steep at that point, but basically what I have is an aluminum ramp that you buy. They advertise these for, say, rolling an ATV up into the back of a pickup truck. It can hold a tremendous amount of weight. They weigh very little. And I can just pull it out and put it up at somebody's home and get into their home. So let's talk about types of ramps. So the first one is aluminum. That's kind of 2 types of aluminum ramps. You've got a portable version and you have a permanent version. So you can build an ADA compliant ramp out of aluminum. There's a lot of companies that do this. The pros to this is they're durable, they're lightweight, they're weather resistant, easy to clean, you can power wash them, and they have minimal maintenance. The cons, not a whole lot of customization that you can do that you might be able to do with some of the other types. How to buy these? Online, lots of them online, a lot of companies that can come out and give you a quote on installing these. And you also can probably find them at any medical supply business, or at least links to buying them. You can also buy the temporary aluminum racks. Now, I bought mine off of eBay, but an outdoor sports store, a hunting shop, any of those places. So the second one type of ramp is wood. The pros to wood, they're very, very customizable. You can build almost any design you want, and you can fit a wood ramp in places you might not be able to fit a pre-made ramp. The cons, they require maintenance. They get dirty. You have to power wash them, keep them stained. Sealants, so they're susceptible to rot and to weather damage. How to buy? You can build it yourself. You can design and build it yourself. You can purchase plans online and build it yourself, or you can hire professionals to build one of these ramps. Third type of ramp. You see these more in the commercial, out there in the business world, concrete ramps. Pros are they're very durable, and they can be poured to meet any specific slope requirements or angles. The cons, they're a lot more expensive, and they're permanent, and professionals almost always have to install these as opposed to DIY. Number 4, a steel ramp. Steel ramp will look very similar to the aluminum ramp, except they're a lot heavier, they're a lot more durable. I'll show you one little steel ramp that I have here, which is actually portable, but it's not light. Cons, it can be heavy and often require professional installation. The last ramp that we're going to talk about, and I'll show you how I use these for small, a lot more of the small inclines in my house, is you can go online and buy foam ramps that are used for wheelchairs. The pros are extremely lightweight and portable. You can just pick them right up, put them in a closet, move them if you need to. The cons, they're just not going to last as long as other ramps, but I've got a couple of these, and the surface is gone on them, but the ramp itself is very good. And you can buy these online or at a medical supply store. The 6th type of ramp that I'll show you and that I have in my house is a rubber ramp. So just like the foam, made of rubber. They'll last a little longer than the foam ramps. They're lightweight, they're portable. Cons, I don't really know any cons for the rubber one. They're easy to clean and they'll last basically forever. Portable versus non-portable ramps. Pros, good solution for short-term or temporary access. Portable ramps are good on the short term. For some of the rubber and foam ramps that I've talked about, or even the small wood ramps that I'll show you, they're long term. They're not necessarily temporary. But when I'm speaking about the pros being short term or temporary, that's going to be more for like your outdoor stair type ramps. The portable ramps are temporary. The cons with portable ramps is most of them do not meet ADA requirements, and they're not quite as stable as a permanently installed ramp. So every home is built different. There are different challenges with every home. I'm going to show you a few in my home and show you the ramps that we've used to solve some of those. So let me show some of those to you now. All right, so here's one little example of where I have used a rubber ramp. This was a little area leading into my bathroom, and as you can see, there's a tiny little lip right there. So I purchased this ramp that's only a little under 1 inch in height, and it just can go right in and will last forever. All right, so here's another example. We have hardwood floor in this room. We have tile in the kitchen, but in between the two was not quite 3/4 of an inch rise. So you can buy these in a hardware store. In my case, I cut an edge onto a piece of oak and put that in here, but there is a rise here. So this is a solution for going between floor heights between different rooms. We have the same thing over here leading out into this room. There's actually a drop here, so I'm going to go out here and spin around. So we actually, when we did the floor in the kitchen, we actually tiled in a piece of tile at an angle here to give us a ramp between these two floors. And here's another one. This leads into a little side room to the house, but when the house was built, this room was added on later, I believe, and it is about 2.5 inches below the floor in the rest of the house. So we actually have a steel ramp that sits here. It can be moved, but it's a permanent ramp for here. And this one certainly is ADA compliant in terms of, not necessarily the length, because it would need to be, let me back up. It's not ADA compliant because it would need to be 2 feet in length, but it's easy to roll up in a wheelchair. All right, so here's another ramp. So this is in the bathroom leading into the shower, where I have put in a redwood floor to be able to roll the wheelchair in, but we had to climb about 2.5 inches to get to that level. So this is a foam floor, and obviously easy to move. This was by a company called Silver Spring, but it's easy. You can order them online, and you just fit them where you need them. All right, so now we're going to go outside. So as you can see, we have 3 steps we need to come up, and this is the temporary ramp that I currently have. This is another way to get into the house, but this ramp over here we have one less step over here, so it's a lot easier to go in over here. Sorry, it's not all cleaned up. Our leaves are all falling right now, but this is a temporary ramp, and so like I said, I do have it on my list to build a permanent ramp here that's ADA compliant, but for me pushing my wife in her wheelchair, this ramp works real good for that, at least for the time being. I've got 2 other ramps. The aluminum ramp I spoke of earlier that I keep in my truck. I'm showing you some pictures here now of that in the place of this wood ramp, and then I also have a small wooden ramp that I'll show you here. It's a little steep for 3 steps, but if you have 1 step, this wooden ramp's a great ramp too. I hope this has provided a few ideas for your situation. It can be real stressful to think about solutions when maybe you weren't ready for a wheelchair or for your loved one to be in a wheelchair in your home. Just take one step at a time. Do your research. There's a lot of ideas online. There's a lot of temporary solutions to things. Maybe even ones you can make yourself. You can solve some of your problems. I hope this video helped in some way. Or if you have some ideas that you want to add to this, I don't have all the perfect ideas. These are just things I've come up with. Love for your thoughts. Send us an email. Tell us, comment about ideas you have or thoughts you have on what I've said. Like us. We'd appreciate that in our Facebook and on YouTube. But I hope this helped. So this is ramps, and we'll address some of those things I said I wasn't going to cover in this. Hopefully we'll get to some of that down the road. So thanks a lot. Have a good day.